Good morning, or afternoon, I should say.
Good afternoon.
Thanks
So
for all
I'm,
your hard work on this too. I appreciate it.
so I'm going. Do you want to launch the PowerPoint and have the first slide on the
Certainly,
screen?
absolutely.
And then once Nicole gets on, she'll do like the introduction.
Sure.
And then once we get to module 1, I'll launch the poll questions. Correct?
Yes. Slide 5.
Yep. Okay. So I'll follow along.
Awesome. And are you guys are taking the roll as far
Yep.
as? Okay. Awesome.
Yep. So once everyone logs in, give you all the okay to start. Okay. Perfect.
Awesome. Hi, Phil. Oh, you're muted, brother.
Sorry about that. I am back. Hope everybody can hear me now.
Yeah, I hear you, Phil.
Excellent.
Can you hear me, Nicole?
Yes, sir, I can. And I just listened to your voicemail. Sorry about that. We've been on calls all day.
I've got a C5 they're wanting to try to do sometime the 1st September.
Okay.
And I got the rosters filled out and I'm fixing to send it to Augie here as soon as we get done with this.
Okay. How many people?
I got it wrote down here.
You gonna do less than 12 or less than 10 to do the COVID stuff?
Yes. Yeah, less than 10.
Okay, that sounds good.
I think it is 10. It's actually on the list, but I think here it is. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's 10, but I think I've got 3 of them that's already took it in February, but I never received the certificates from SSPC.
From the class in February?
Yeah, the 29th.
Okay, I should have them so I can send them to you electronically.
All righty. There should be 4 of them. Thank you much.
You got it.
How's everybody?
Good. Tropical storm can't hold us down. We're still gonna launch these trainings.
Good morning, Jim. Or,
Good morning,
yeah, well,
Kevin.
you're still in the morning for a little while, for a few minutes.
Just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Me and you both are.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Morning, Jim.
morning.
It's afternoon
doing?
where I'm at, but I'll appease you. Good morning.
All right. We'll make it.
We'll make it.
Oh, yeah. We always do, don't we?
Yep.
Kevin, how's Bob doing?
Bob's doing great. He just finished up some C5 work for us at the end of last week. So he's doing well. He's spent a lot of time down at the lake, which is a good thing.
Yeah, I tried to call him today. I hadn't talked to him in a couple of weeks, so I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's I haven't talked to him a whole lot, but like I said, he's pretty much, that's been his place of residence. That's where he's been holing up during all of this stuff, is down at the lake. So that's a
Yeah,
good place to be.
Yeah, they have a 3 o'clock meeting every day. Just
Yeah,
everybody
yeah, they
pulls
do.
in their buggies and they drink beer.
Yep, they do.
All right.
It was good to see you, Jim.
Yeah, same here, Kevin.
Thank you, brother.
You too, Phil.
You too as well. I'm glad you're healthy and safe. Seen some of the names on the rosters, and I know that this COVID has affected a lot of people, and I was glad to see the names. So glad you're doing well.
Thank you much, buddy. You too.
What's up, Chad? Hi, everybody.
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Nick.
Hi, Chad.
How are you?
Yeah, I wish I were where you are, Nick.
Lake Erie, looking good. A little bit of the storm coming by.
Yeah, it looks pretty nice right now. Subject to change.
Actually, this is a pond behind our Columbus training hall. Dwayne and I go fishing there from time to time.
Hello.
Is that the Dalton fan club?
No, this is Tom Falter from New Hampshire.
Oh, hey, Tom. Good
How you
morning.
doing? Good morning.
Hi, Tom.
How you doing?
Good morning and afternoon.
All right, everybody, good morning, good afternoon. We'll give it a few more minutes for everybody to log in. And then we'll kind of kick it off here shortly.
Aloha, Ikaika.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good morning also.
Can you tell that guy Daryl to be quiet in the background, Ikaika?
Yeah, I don't know how to mute. Hold on.
Good morning, Ikaika. It's good to see you.
Is that Phil?
Yeah, I've seen Ikaika on there. I haven't seen
Yeah.
him in a while.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. What time is it where you're at?
Seven in the morning.
7 in the morning. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon again. Welcome to the FTI's MEWP ANSI A-92 supplement class. It's going to be taught today by Kevin Harned and Phil Harper. I'm on the line from the IFTI. Monisha is also on the line from the IFTI, and we will be helping facilitate today's class. So if you guys do have any questions that come up, please put your questions in the chat. We'll be monitoring that. If you have anything else, you can also message us through the chat window and let us know if you have anything. But I think we'll go ahead and get started if Kevin and Phil are ready. One quick housekeeping note, I will say, just like any other on-campus class of the IFTI, there will be a survey. So you will be expected to fill that out so you get credit for this course. And we'll put that in the chat here a little bit later on, so that you guys can access that in the LMS. Other than that, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin.
Good morning and good afternoon. As you can see from the photos up here, you're well represented from Indianapolis, but the Missouri rep is a little bit suspect. But we're gonna get on to the ANSI, the MEWP ANSI standards. I don't know how has anybody had this enforced in their area or had any kind of issues with the contractors yet? None. I know that.
Yeah,
go ahead.
they're enforcing it in Boston.
In Boston? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, have most of the members been required to retake the whole training, or are you able to do just a supplement?
With the apprentices, we were doing the supplement. Some of the journeymen, whether or not, depending on how long ago they took their class, they do the whole deal.
Oh, that's awesome. This, of course, is developed as a supplement. It's not a standalone as far as the lift course goes, but in combination with that, which we train on, we are. I'm going to have to hop out of this because my screen is froze. So let me hop back in here. Sorry about that. Apologize again.
That's okay, Kevin. Hey, this is Nicole. Real quick, can you tell me when we're having some poll launching issues? So just give me a heads up when you need to launch the poll, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So the course is a supplement, not a standalone. It covers most of the standards that are, and I don't know why I'm having trouble with there we go. It's not a standalone, so it's just with the intent that it covers the new ANSI standards and kind of gets us up to date. Some of the changes include, some of the expectations as far as the maintenance of scissors and also boom lifts. So that's a big one. We'll also talk about some of the changes in the operation as far as the user. Now we have somebody that's also known as an occupant. Some areas may have had those already anyways, but and I don't know why my video stopped there either. Maybe it's gonna stop every time. Maybe that's why my screen wouldn't share. I apologize again. The course will also help the participant recognize the potential risk factors. Just like any OSHA 10 or OSHA 30 class, they're not really intended for us to memorize all of the standards. We're just, they're supposed to be able to help us recognize some of the hazards that may exist on the job sites so that we can avoid them and plan accordingly. So what is a MEWP? It's a kind of a weird name, but it's the new name for the aerial work platform. So it is the mobile elevated work platform. It's something that may have taken the place of the self-propelled elevating work platforms. There are others that we've used in the past too, and it depends too on where you're at in the country, what we might utilize these for. But the main two that we're going to focus on is the ones that we most widely use in the field, and that's going to be the scissors lift and the boom lift. So that's going to be our main point of focus on here. If you have any type of specialty lifts that you're going to want to cover in your area, then make sure that you can add to this. Feel free that you can add to it too, to cover anything that you may have specifically. So those that are other types of MOOPs, again, we're not going to concentrate on as much today. The outcomes of this training session, we're hoping to be able to describe the major changes that are required in the manufacturing MOOPs, describe the benefits of implementing some of these changes, identify and describe maintenance-related problems and the safety issues that could result from a lack of identifying them prior to the use of the equipment. Identify and describe the standards new requirements for user operators. Identify and describe the standards new requirements for supervisors, users, and operators. Describe proper inspection of the equipment. A lot of the inspections that we did prior are still going to be needed. There's just some additional steps we're going to want to take. Also, identify the importance of a rescue plan for MOOP users. A lot of times that hasn't been the focus in the past. And with the loss of, on average, about 26 construction workers a year on lifts, it's really become a focus, as we should have a rescue plan for every time that we're in a fall protection situation. We want to identify employee and employee rights and responsibilities. With that in mind, Nicole, if you guys could launch that first poll. And though we haven't covered this stuff yet, we will be covering it all. So it's not a pass fail. It's just kind of a just where we're at kind of a poll. So if you guys wouldn't mind completing that. Can everybody see the poll? Oh, there we go. We'll give it another minute or two. Just about everybody's in. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at that. We got most of us in. So we can see here that we're kind of spread around. We got 95% do believe that the occupant still must be trained, and that's accurate. The supervisor does not need hands-on training, but must be educated on the provisions of the standards. We're going to talk more about that also in those requirements. But believe it or not, that is true on that. The supervisor of the MOOP is solely responsible for the safety of the persons not involved in the operation of the MOOP. And we're going to get into that in a little more detail too, but think of that as kind of like the ground personnel or other trades or anybody that happens to be working in that area also. But the supervisor wouldn't be the sole one that's responsible in that. The user would also be responsible to make sure that everybody's kept safe. So any individual who is qualified and in control of the movement of the MOOP is a user operator. That is also true. So great job. And we're going to go ahead and hop back to the task at hand. Some of the topics we're going to cover in Module 1 is going to be the user overview. Module 2, we're going to talk about the training requirements. And Module 3, we're going to do the specifications. In Module 1, the user operator overview. So some of the changes, and they actually implemented these in 2018. They really didn't go into effect though, as almost all standards do. You know, there's that delay process, and there's also where the can gets kicked down the road through challenges, other mechanisms. This actually went into effect on June 1st of this year. So it's something new. If we own or rent a lift if any company does, these changes will affect responsibility of all, but places the special emphasis on the user. It also doesn't matter the size of the company. It's going to affect all companies the same. So who is a user and operator? If we look at that task first, a user or operator is any individual who's qualified and in control of the movement of the MOOP. An occupant is any individual physically on the platform but not in control of its movements. So that's going to be another coworker in most cases. Though the occupant is not in control of the movements of the MOOP, they must still be trained in the safe use. It's also the responsibility of the operator, supervisor, and the employer to know that they're properly trained. So there should be procedures in place that that make sure that the occupant is properly trained, and we'll go over the requirements of that here in a little bit. First, let's talk about the supervisor responsibilities. They include, but are not limited to, performing a site risk assessment. So we've all done JSAs, right? We've all done similar things in different factories or on job sites where we have to fill out something every morning that pertains to the task that we're going to do that day. So we have to perform a site risk assessment to identify any hazards, evaluate the risk, develop the control measures, also communicate with all affected persons. That also could mean that any other person or worker that happens to be in our area. So if we've got the plumbers in our direct area that we're working on it, we got to make sure that they're aware of their surroundings and that we take into account where they're at and what they're doing. The selection, provision, and use of a suitable MOOP and the associated equipment. So these are the supervisor responsibilities. Some of these are going to be shared with the user also. It doesn't mean that they split them up. All it means is that they both are responsible for those areas. So we need to consider the access, the preparation, maintenance of the site to include an assessment that has support surface to support the weight of the MOOP. So we've all seen on job sites where ramps have been built, where other things have been put up to where the tires break through the substrate or through the surface. Those are all things that they shouldn't occur anyways, but you know what I'm saying. There's a particular emphasis on the support structure. To ensure MOOP maintenance, include inspections and repairs as required. Repairs must be immediate with access to the MOOP denied until they are successfully completed. So we need to lock them out. So we're going to talk a little bit more on the maintenance a little bit later, and some of the inspections that are going to be required, but these are supervisor responsibilities. Again, the supervisor has to be trained on the standards. They do not need to go through the hands-on part of the training itself. Does anybody, I'm sure everybody through the past has worked on job sites where you had an ill-maintained company left or one that was even leased. Hopefully not, but it did happen where the controls didn't work well, where the controls stuck, where it wasn't inspected properly or regularly. Heck, sometimes whether they even had brakes or not, right? So I've been, I was working for one company that had crappy brakes on a company-owned lift, and they managed to get by until they actually did a job in a theater. Well, in a movie theater, what do we have? We got a lot of slope floors, don't we? And whenever that went from one unit to the other through the wall, they finally got the brakes fixed. But this is meant to kind of prevent something like that. Anybody have a similar situation? Any of the job sites that they were on? I know Bob Lattimore's got a good one that he could tell if he was on here, but Jimmy, you're going to have to ask him about that one sometime.
Well, I will. McCormick actually had one that had the basket crumble off and kill the guy.
Yeah. No, believe it or not.
It was caused from water being in the basket and it expanding and retracting from freezing and cold. And it caused it to crumble with him and his equipment in there. Weighed about 300 pounds. He wasn't overloaded. And when he went up under the water tank, the basket crumbled off.
Wow.
And he fell 200 feet to the ground.
That's horrible. If you end up going to OSHA and you're doing a search for fatal facts with lifts, you'd be surprised even here recently at some of the horrendous examples that we've got of deaths on lifts, not just the injuries. We may have all seen where the control panel sticks a little bit on the upward or the downward, but at least on the upward, it's a lot more risky situation. I've seen some different soffits and stuff be taken out on jobs. It's a miracle more people haven't got hurt on them through the past. Bob was working on a hotel and actually went through like some of the privacy fence over into the next property. So like I said, you have to check with them sometime, but the supervisor is also responsible for informing the operator, user of local site requirements. Also, they need to be warned of any types of hazards that may be in the areas that they're working or that the MEWP is being operated in. Supervisor must be trained and qualified to monitor the performance of the operator to ensure compliance with the provisions of the standards. So basically, this was one of the questions. I'm not going to get too far into the training because Phil's going to do a good job of that. But sometimes there can be stickler situations to where we have a specific model on a card or something, and there may be questions brought up as whether we can legally operate something. And this would be a case of that. The supervisor, if they're, is going to, even if it's the same model, if that lift, if you haven't seen the person operate the lift before, they should be monitored to make sure that they are operating it correctly, because you know how it is out in the field, especially through years past. If somebody asks you if you could do something, the first answer was yes, and you figured it out in the process. So if there's any questions, if they seem a little shaky, then you could take the moment to train them more adequately. So the supervisor does not need the hands-on training, as we mentioned before. I'll bet you guys see that at an exam, just a guess. The supervisor is responsible for prevention of any unauthorized use of the MEWP. So there's been, much like even scaffolding, we should secure these mobile lifts or mobile scaffolding, as a scissors is sometimes referred to. We should secure them from usage whenever we don't have the ability to supervise them. We know what it's like on big jobs. There's been a multitude. One way, there's been many ways that you've had to do that on job sites, or else you come in the next day, somebody's used it, they haven't plugged it in, it's dead as a doornail, as we all know. Sometimes, they've taken boxes off the units before in the past. Sometimes I've seen on job sites where somebody has their own box will travel. So they actually connect another box up to somebody's left and utilize it. But we need to make sure that we prevent as much as possible anybody utilizing our equipment when we're not there to supervise. And that goes for even things that aren't fully constructed, like a scaffolding. If we're working on it and building it up, we still need to lock it out in the evenings to make sure nobody gets on that is from another company when we're not around. So the supervisor and user are responsible for the safety of the persons that are not involved in the operation of the MEWP. So both are, and that could be that is the occupant. That's also anybody that may be working in the area. If you guys have any questions or comments or anything else at any time, it's not a race. I mean, it's not going to be a long session anyways, but if you've got anything that you'd like to add, you think will contribute, please feel free to chip in.
Kevin, sorry to interrupt.
No, not at all.
As far as supervisor, are they talking about the foreman? Are they talking about?
It can actually, and that's a great question. It could be actually even a user also. So a user could still be the supervisor. They may have both roles. It's kind of like a competent scaffolding person. So if you're on a job site, somebody is going to, and you're utilizing scaffolding at all, somebody on that job site is going to be the competent person as far as maybe not as far as the use of that scaffold. So if somebody isn't named that, or they don't know that in advance, when an OSHA compliance officer comes on a job site, they'll possibly even name somebody if we're not willing to put somebody up. So
What's terminology?
yes, it can be a foreman, it can be the user themselves, but it's going to be somebody that is ultimately responsible to make sure that everybody's properly trained and it's got same, right usage, the right site surveys, all of that. So it's kind of in parallel with what I was talking about with the scaffolding. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks too. Great question. So the user responsibilities, we're going to get in a little bit more of these. So that's somebody that's actually in control of the lift. So their responsibility is communicating the results of the risk assessments to all parties involved. Who is that? That's going to be any occupant, and it's going to be anybody else that may be affected by the use of that lift that's in the area. They also need to make sure that any occupants are properly trained in the safe use of MEWPs. And that's just a nominal training. That's and again, Phil's gonna expand on those. So they also need to know where the manuals are kept, understand the contents of the same. So if they're on a little bit different model, if it's the same type, same, if we're looking at the same basic models that they've been trained on, then they're going to want to familiarize yourselves with any differences that lift may have. So knowing the rescue plan and operating the MEWP while keeping the safety at all times that can be affected in mind, that's going to be the user's responsibility too. The rescue plans themselves, the user must develop and or understand the rescue plan. So the user can be part of that too, but like I said, if it's a supervisor / user, it can be the same person. If it's somebody else, the user is going to be going to be very, very important and intricate to a lot of the things that the actual supervisor is responsible for. The plan and the rescue plan is one. The plan must take into consideration mechanical breakdowns of the MEWP. So we have to think of different things like platform entanglement or a fall from the platform. It must be in writing, like the other fall protection plans that we have to deal with. It's got to become part of the company's training manual. All occupants must receive training that explains the procedures to follow if they fall, await rescue, or witness another worker's fall. And that's not too different from what we deal with in fall protection. The rescue plan must limit the time a properly restrained worker hangs suspended. We don't want suspension trauma, right? Rescue plans can include self-rescue by the person involved. If they're using some type of self-rescue harness, if they're assisted by rescue by other workers in the area, they can also use the ground controls. They can get somebody to use ground controls in conjunction with them. They can utilize or have a plan to use a second MEWP that's in the area for rescue if needed, or technical rescue by emergency services that are readily available. It doesn't mean 911, right? Where we don't really know how long it's going to take them to get there or where they're located. That's going to be somebody most likely, well, it's almost going to have to be somebody on site that is able to provide that. Some of our work is going to take place in those areas. They can provide that. In summary, any individual who is qualified in control of the movement of the MEWP is a user operator. Any individual physically on the platform but has no control of the movement of the MEWP. Now, they can have control of different accessories, and what that might be, whenever you see that later too, is like a platform. It could be something in the lift that is able to assist those working on it. They can control things like that. And like I said, Phil is gonna get a little more into some of the training, so I won't digress too much there. The occupant must be trained in the safe use of the MEWP. understand the rescue plan. So the occupant has to understand the rescue plan too and what it is. The supervisor or user must develop a safe use program specific for job site conditions, as is with just about every kind of safety plan or PPE plan that we've got. The rescue plan must be in writing and become part of the company's training manuals. The only entities that are not affected by these standards, as usual, are homeowners, private non-business owners, as they are not subject to OSHA enforcement. Now, where that's not going to be the case in most, even if you got somebody that owns a company and works for themselves, they may not technically have to provide workman's comp, some of these other things that are standards or provisions, but the general contractor, anybody that above them, is most likely going to assure that they do, because they're going to be responsible for that if they're not. So it's going to be a provision to get the job in the first place in most cases. So I'm going to go ahead and actually, before we get into module 2, under the training and inspections, Nicole, if you could launch that next poll. We'll see if we can't get these questions answered in this next module. Thank you. We're not going to have 100% on anything in this one. I'm not a genius, but that one's staying at. I think that's pretty good. Phil, can you see those results?
I cannot.
Okay, I'm going to end the polling.
Okay.
All right, now everybody can see it, right?
Yes.
Do you want to discuss these, or you want me to go over them real quick?
Sure. So operator training does not have to include proper selection of the correct MEWP for the work to be performed. That is false. You have to know what type of lift that you're going to choose to make sure that it is not going to fall into the realm of unsafe. So it is very important that you know how to do that. Number 2, at least one of the occupants must be provided with the knowledge to operate the controls in an emergency where the operator cannot. That is also true. You want to make sure that you have a plan, as Kevin discussed, and that can be part of that plan. If that operator goes down, he may need to operate those controls to be able to rescue you. Number 3, when a dealer rents a MEWP to a user, the user absorbs all the responsibility to ensure the equipment meets all the requirements listed in the standard. That is true. We know that the majority of these standards are going to affect the people that are renting these lifts, but acceptance of it is going to be placed on us. So we have to make sure that if it does not meet the requirements, that we reject that material or reject that equipment and get the proper equipment. Number 4, only supervisors must have the ability to perform a workplace risk assessment, including rescue planning. That is false. If you are denying the people who use that equipment to participate in that or even perform that risk assessment, you're definitely not doing yourself any favors. You want them involved in that rescue plan. You want them involved in that site assessment. so that they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones who may anticipate things that you don't, and vice versa with that supervisor. Looks like everybody did pretty good, Kevin.
Yeah, I'd say on 3, how many of you guys have accepted lifts on job sites before? Probably the huge majority, right? You signed off on the paperwork whenever they've dropped them off. Do you guys ever read any of that paperwork? I know most of the time we don't. I took the time one time to actually, because the driver was eating lunch, and I actually had an opportunity to read the paperwork that we sign all the time. And you wouldn't believe through the past the legal indemnity that we sign off. I mean, we absolve them of all legal responsibility of anything and everything whenever we signed off and accepted those in the past, from even maintenance issues. And I got to the point to where I would actually X out sections and initial it because I didn't see, especially before these standards were provided, why we should be responsible for somebody's lack of maintenance on a piece of equipment that you're renting and paying full price for. And I never had any fail to not deliver it. I mean, none of them took it back. But it's amazing at some of the things that we sign off on job sites. So this provision is something that we are going to have to be a whole lot more a big part of that picture on the maintenance, making sure, and Phil's going to get into some of that.
Yeah, it's very important that you do that walk around inspection on equipment before you accept it. And I know that firsthand. About 8 years ago, I was working on the Simon Tower in downtown Indianapolis. We were spraying a deck, and because of that, we ordered a lift that really didn't matter if we got paint on it. Well, I should have emphasized don't really matter, because they took me word for what I said, because about the 3rd day we were sitting down eating lunch, and there was so much corrosion on the batteries that it actually caused a spark to fly out of it. The lift came on by itself, and give a little compliment to the glazers here, because it drove in low speed toward the window, slammed into it, did not break, and just sat there until we hit the e-stop on the lower controls to get it to stop.
No way.
Yeah, it was bad. We were looking out the window, and that is where all the people gather and eat their lunch, and it would have been right on top of them had it went through that window. And honestly, I could blame the lift company, but it was really my responsibility to do that walk around inspection, make sure that thing was good to go before I signed off on it. So
I'm really surprised at how many just typically do not even know how to check the water levels in the batteries. I mean, those are all things that we've got to make sure that are done too.
Absolutely.
But, no, it sounds like a haunted lift to me.
It was. It was. So before we get started on Module 2, I just want to throw out there if anybody had any questions on what we've covered so far. There's a lot of technical jargon that is in the new standard. So if you have those questions, now is the time to ask while we have Kevin.
No, I think you're more than adept to handle that, Phil. I might hit you with a question or two.
Yeah. So one of the questions that one of the contractors, because really that's the hardest part about the new standard, is educating the contractors as much as it is the members. And one of the contractors, their safety guy, called me, and this may come up later, so it would be good to address it, Kevin, in Module 3. But with ANSI standards being, if you want those, you have to pay for them, correct?
Correct.
So his question was, if they're not freely provided, and again, this is probably a question for later, if they're not freely provided, do I have to pay? Do I have to pay for them? And if I choose not to pay for them, am I really in violation? Again, we could put a pin in that one for later, because I know it comes up in Module 3. So any questions for Module 2? All right. Anyone who directly supervises a MEWP operator must go through the general training that the operator is required to go through. However, they are not required to complete the hands-on training component. I don't know if any of our councils are offering standalone training. Obviously, if a supervisor needed it, you could offer it without the hands-on. We currently do not. It's all or nothing here. The MEWP operator must ensure that all occupants in the platform have a basic level of knowledge to work safely on the MEWP. That is extremely important because our journeymen generally have years of experience and the apprentices are usually the helpers. So it is extremely important that they understand all of the hazards that are involved with what they're doing, in case of a situation, what they should do, obviously, and how their movements affect the lift as they're working with you. The training to be able to give someone that knowledge doesn't take that long. It just takes someone willing to do it. And that should be emphasized when you're teaching this class. Next slide, please. Okay, so the operator training remains very much the same, except it must also cover these areas. And as Kevin would say, this might be a question, this might be part of the questioning or test later. Proper selection of the correct MEWP for the worker to be performed, how to perform a workplace risk assessment, including rescue planning, proper training of the occupants, all part of the new and existing part of training requirements. Occupant training must cover at least these areas. The requirements to use fall protection and the location of the fall protection. If someone comes out and actually starts to check these things, remember you're going to have a plan in place for your fall protection. So proper fall protection for the right scenario is very important. It's something you can hit 1,000 times and complacency will still override that training. So it's very important to hit it over and over again. Factors include how their actions could affect stability. Each person that's riding in there needs to understand the movement of the lift and how it could affect the second person that's in that lift. You need the safe use of MEWP accessories that are assigned to use. You don't want someone grabbing those controls if they're not assigned to use them. It may be move me forward, but remember, it is very dangerous and not part of the standard that anyone operate it unless they're trained to do so. Any site-specific work procedures the occupants must follow related to the operation of the MEWP. Next. Occupant training must cover at least these areas. These are continued. Hazard related to the task at hand and their avoidance. Oh, we're going backwards. Manufacturer's warnings and instructions. It's very important that when you have someone on there that they understand weight ratings, limitations. It's just like any other piece of personal protective equipment. The most important thing is that you understand its limitations. At least one occupant must be provided with the knowledge to operate the controls in an emergency where the operator cannot. This is an emergency training only and does not constitute operator training. In other words, if they have the operator training, and as Kevin talked about with model familiarization, it is a good idea to reiterate those points that how you get this equipment down safely may be different than the model that you were trained on. Very important. Supervisors must be trained in these additional areas. Proper selection of the correct MEWP for the work to be performed. You want to make sure that it's going to be able to safely get to where it needs to go. It's going to operate where it is, and it's not going to cause any additional hazards. The ability to perform a workplace risk assessment includes rescue planning. Rescue planning needs to be thought out in great detail. We talked about trauma, help me out, Kevin.
Suspension trauma.
Suspension trauma. Those are not something that all the contractors provide. So we have a sample of them in our training that we show. We tell them where they can get it and what the cost is. And if you could put a value on someone's life, well, you're a better person than me because I can't. It seems pretty cheap for assurance. But your rescue plan can't stop there. It has to include getting those people safely to where they're on the ground again. So you can't go too far with this.
Bill, with that in mind, one of the things that we've had some success doing, and we end up having to pay for a lot of things through our training centers, but working with a person that we get a lot of safety, or that we buy a lot of our masks and everything through, we discussed these classes and asked them for examples. If we could model, if we could show them to our classes, because we have a lot of journeyman upgrades and a lot of journeyman certifications, and somebody might like one of these models a whole lot more than the one they're using, and go purchase it from them. So we were able to get them on loan. So we keep them at the facility, different examples of different kinds at no cost to us. So that's something you might want to run by whoever provides you with your safety equipment.
Yeah, we currently use 2 different companies, and I'll be doing that this week. Thanks, Kevin.
Awesome.
Next bullet point, please.
There we go.
Yeah. The rules, regulations, and standards that apply to MOOPs include the provisions for safe use and the work being performed. Every one of these new regulations are all geared toward this. They looked at the standards, they figured out, what the high probability of people getting hurt, what's associated with it. The new rules, although maybe a little cumbersome to get used to the idea or to get them to build those habits, they're all for our safety. And I think some of them are well overdue. Okay, supervisors, potential hazards associated with the use of MOOPs and the means to protect against identified hazards. You have to know what the associated hazards are with your daily task. Everybody knows if you're working at height, there's a fall. But you need to associate what your hazards are with your trade specifically. And they can be different from a painter to a glazer. But you also have to consider the hazards that can be brought into play with other trades as well. So it's a good idea to think about all the aspects of the work that's being done at that location throughout the process of the job when you're creating that. Next. Knowledge that the manufacturer's operating manuals are critical to safe operation and maintenance of the MOOPs, and that they must be stored properly in weather-resistant compartments on the MOOP. It is amazing to me how many times you rent a lift and it's not there. It's a quick call, they'll bring it out, they'll put it in there. But you might be able to dispute the fact whether you read it thoroughly or not, but you're definitely not going to be able to dispute that if it's not in the box at all. Quick walk around inspection when it's delivered, or if your company owns it, just to make sure it's in there. Doesn't take that long. Okay, so let's talk about performing a job site analysis. This is something that we use in our apprenticeship. We actually made the boxes larger so that we could use it as an exercise. We'll create a couple scenarios where you have to get on the job, or you have to get the information out there as to what the job is going to entail, from its creation to where you're complete. And this is actually a good tool and more than just a handout. You walk them through task 1, which is to define the work. What specific tasks do you need to complete the job? And then you have the students make a list of everything that they would need to do the job. The second one is the location. Will you be working? Will you need a transport machine? So you might throw out the scenario that you need the building inside on the east side of the building and the equipment is currently on the west side. And just to be a pain, yes, I do that. I'll throw out scenarios that won't work as they come up with their solutions to see how creative they can be to get from A to B. Timing, what does the work need to be finished? Is that going to work with the time frame? Are there times of the day that you can't work? Can you not work at night? Can you not work an hour before dusk? Or can you not work during the day because there's another trade that's going to be there? All scenarios that need to be thrown in there. And then we move on to the selection of the MOOP. Selection of the MOOP is not just as easy as determining whether it's going to be a boom, a scissor, or just a straight vertical lift. You also have to consider where is the work going to be performed. can I get a scissor lift in there? Or do I need to extend over to where I'm at? So if the building's 20 foot tall and I got to extend 20 foot over, then I know that a 20-foot boom is not going to do it. So all those need to be considered because the safety element in there moves us to step 3, which is evaluating the risk. If the MEWP related working at height is staying within the rated capacity, how much weight am I going to have in there? And at this angle, am I safely using this piece of equipment? Now, one thing that is good to note is that OSHA considers every person at 250 pounds. Even if you've got 2 twigs working in there, which I am not, but if you've got 2 guys that weigh 100 pounds apiece, you still have to rate them at 250 to be in safe working operation of that equipment. Job site specific, make sure that when you're getting from A to B, you're avoiding power lines. Once you're in place to do the work in a high reach area, that you're not getting within the 10-foot rule of the power line. In addition, keeping workers on the ground safe, preventing unauthorized use, as Kevin talked about, of the equipment, and safe passage. Moves us on to 4, identifying the controls. Safe work procedures, use the correct PPE. Remember, all lifts are considered a part of scaffolding, so the minimum PPE that you should be wearing, and again, I said a minimum, is hard hat, safety glasses, and work boots. And ensure that they understand fall arrest systems, where their points are to lock on, that they're not going to put 2 lanyards together, that they're not going to tie it in knots. It's very important that they understand that. Smart scheduling. Organizing the work in ways that minimize exposure to hazards. If there is a lot of traffic coming in and out of that area, you might want to think about when you start work in that location. And then obviously, hit it again, the rescue plan. It may include self-rescue, nothing wrong with that. But if there is an assisted rescue or it needs to be a technical rescue, you need to decide that out of the start, not when the accident happens. And then number 5, communication. Operator is trained and authorized to operate a MEWP. It is very important that those cards are with them and that they've had the new training. That's the whole point of the add-on. Occupant has basic knowledge of the MEWP use and the safety. Ask your operators if they feel comfortable. Some of them may feel comfortable operating, but not getting it to A to B. Nothing wrong with helping out. Supervisor is to monitor the use of the MEWP to ensure that the safety plan is being followed. If it's not being followed, you need to ask yourself why, because it may need to be adjusted. Technical performance of a MEWP, maintenance in line with the manufacturer's requirements. And again, this whole list of risk assessment is what should be done, and it is a great tool to use with the journeyman and apprentices to go through how to do it, to write it out. It doesn't have to be typed. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but it does have to be written down. Next slide, please. Maintenance and inspection. Who's the responsibility of it? When a dealer rents a MEWP to a user, the user absorbs all the responsibility to ensure that the equipment meets all the requirements listed in the standards. It's very important that when you receive this equipment, that you send the right person out to make sure that when they sign off on it, it meets all the requirements. Look, I've been a foreman for years. It is a heck of a lot easier for me to say, hey, Joe Apprentice, go get that unloaded and bring it around. But if you don't know what to check for, we're going to be the ones paying for it. Next slide, please. If the MEWP is rented, arrangements must be made by the owner to identify the entity that will be responsible for the inspection and maintenance activities described in the standard. That is very important to know that the equipment that you're getting meets all of the guidelines for the plan that should have already been written. Next slide, please. These include, but are not limited to, frequent inspections. When the MEWP is put into service, then every 3 months or 150 hour, whichever comes first, it needs to be inspected. Guys, that is the requirement. A detailed inspection is fine every 3 months, 150 hours. A daily inspection per user is what you should be doing. Annual inspections. Perform no later than 13 months after previous annual inspection. The annual inspection must be documented on the outside of the MEWP in the form of a decal or a plate, and must identify the person who performed the inspection and list the date that it was performed. When these standards come out back in, I think they became effective, was it June? We called the company that we use for all of our maintenance. They help us set up a preventative maintenance logbook, a sticker that they provided to be able to inspect it that meets this requirements, and it costs us under $200 to set that whole thing up. Obviously, that didn't include the annual visit, but it was pretty close to about $200 a year just to make sure that our boom and a scissor that are at our schools meet the requirements. Just throwing that out for use. User inspection. The users are responsible for all the requirements that are listed in the previous standard and for following recommended procedures listed in the manufacturer's operating manual. The operator manual is going to be a rule law, but you got to make sure that the equipment has all the modifications to it. User inspection, in summary, a supervisor must go through the general training that operator is required to go through. However, they are not required to complete the hands-on training component. The MEWP operator must ensure that all occupants in the platform have a basic level of knowledge to work safely on the MEWP. The operator training must include proper selection of the correct MEWP for the work to be performed. Next, please. At least one of the occupants must be provided with the knowledge to operate the controls in an emergency where the operator cannot. This emergency training only and does not constitute operator training. Supervisors and users must have the ability to perform a workplace risk assessment, including rescue planning. As Kevin said earlier, that's a good one to know right there. Next, user must ensure that maintenance and repair personnel are trained by qualified persons to inspect and maintain the MEWP in accordance to the manufacturer's recommendations and ANSI standards. When a dealer rents a MEWP to a user, the user absorbs all of the responsibility to ensure that the equipment meets all of the requirements listed in this standard. Okay, so I believe you have another poll to launch. You're muted, Kevin.
This will be the final poll of the presentation and the last module also. So if you guys wouldn't mind taking a minute. Just a few more seconds. All righty, we're going to go ahead and close it. Get the majority. So as far as the all new MEWPs must have a gated entrance to work platforms. The chains are no longer permitted. That is correct. This particular module is going to go over the manufacturer's requirements to meet the new ANSI standards. The minimum height for equipment platform railings will increase from 38 to 45 inches. That is actually incorrect, and we will go over those figures here in just a second, because these standards have not yet been adopted by OSHA. Only warnings can be given with no citations issued. We'll get into that too. That's about as much of a split as you can get on true and false. This is the particular answer to that is false. You can be cited. MEWPs used on rough terrain will be required to have foam-filled or solid tires, and that is true. And so we said we'll get into that in this section. Anybody got any questions or comments as far as the polls on that? Or are we just going to come across them? We've seen all kinds of situation with tires and air issues and everything else, and so they are moving toward hard or foam-filled tires for the outside, which is a good idea anyways. A lot of these ANSI changes are positive as far as that goes. Just remember, just like any other standard, they're always the minimum. So they're not what we should be teaching to or doing up to. We should be doing that at the bare base minimum. So all new MEWPs must have a gated entrance to the work platform. Change are no longer permitted. As probably one of the most cited things on scissor lifts in the past has been not using the chains properly, I would say. Anybody seen any accidents on any job sites because of a lack of chain usage? No. I've seen some close calls where somebody, almost their foot almost come off the platform, but I've never seen any major accidents from it. But I guarantee you we could find them in fatal lifts. The number one, it's kind of odd. What would you guys think would be, if we look at the number one cause of deaths in a boom lift, what would you think the number one cause would be? What most deaths occur from?
Ejection.
Ejection is,
yep,
it's very high. I was kind of electric. I was kind of shocked, but then again, I thought about it, and the majority of those are going to be in contact with overhead power lines. But 25% out of all the construction trade deaths in lifts are from electrician trades, and they're electric. On the scissors, what do you think the number one cause of death out of a scissors would be? Scissors lift.
Tip over.
Rush.
Tip over it's in that statistic. So you guys, great answers all the way around. It's from falls. So tip overs also contribute to that, but it's also falling out of the basket. And what do they have? They got built-in fall protection, don't they? I was working on the last fatality on a job site that I was working on was a Gold's Gym that had been converted from a Walmart. And in the area I was working was two iron workers working off of the same lift. Now, you know how high a Walmart ceiling is. It's not that high. You're looking at less than 23 feet from any peak, but that's still a pretty good drop. It was a father-son on the lift, and the dad was overreaching on the rails and fell and landed on his head. And in the process, he wasn't out, but he wasn't conscious. I mean, he was trying to get up, everything else, and many in the area were trying to get him to lay down, to settle down, but he ended up dying from his injuries. And with his son present, just kind of made, they're all horrible, but that one in particular really stood out. So we're overreaching a lot whenever we're on things, lifts and other things. And that's one thing which now with proper fall protection, also besides just the carriage of the lift, properly tied off to the anchor points and so forth, you're gonna see hopefully a lot less along that line. Some models will have reduced lift and load speeds. So that's gonna be pretty common. You know how it was whenever you first started getting some of these alarms and everything on these lifts, and you're griping because you wish you had one of the old ones because you could get the work done because you can't get it to function properly. in all seriousness, it's there for a reason. I think it was Chernobyl. I believe they overrode like 7 warnings, 7 system shutdowns to get that meltdown. There's a reason why. There's a reason why equipment has those turnoffs and those safeties on there. And our common thought is to override them so we could accomplish whatever we are at the task. But there's a reason why they're there. MEWPs used on rough terrain will be required to have foam-filled or solid tires. Indoor-only equipment may be developed. So you might see some specialty equipment developed that is not going to be for exterior use because they may not have wind warning systems or anything along those lines, which they do get blown over a lot. Scissor lifts do. I was on the upper floors, like 38th floor of the Eagleton building when a lift got blown over up there. I wasn't on it, but the electrician was. He didn't get killed, thank God, but the minimum height for equipment platform railings will increase from 39.5 to 43.5. That, if there's not special accommodations made for the carriage and the lift, that could result in some models needing to be disassembled to get into certain areas, right? To get them through doorways, get them through other areas that we need to get to the work. In that case, it can't be like Christmas where we have a lot of parts left over whenever we put something back together. We'll need to put it fully assembled and back together as it was. If the safe load limit is exceeded, an alarm will sound and a sensor will prevent normal operations. So this is kind of like those shutdowns I was talking about at first. Remember, whenever the backup alarms first came on, John, how many people disassembled the backup alarms or disabled them? Similarly, all new equipment will come with a tilt sensor alarm and a system to disable the boom functions if the machine exceeds its slope limit. So again, those safety features. MEWPs designed to be used outdoors will utilize a wind speed sensor to reduce load capacities and enhance safety in wind conditions. That's always been something that's been really tricky to get people to adhere to in the past. And it's always been a big judgmental thing in most cases. And they're trying to take that aspect out of it, the human error aspect, and have the manufacturers limit the wind load speeds with the equipment that happens to be on them. The MEWPs are further classified into types. Type 1 is the equipment can only be driven with the platform in its stowed position. So that's going to be its lowest position, what it's hauled in. So that's type 1. It can only be driven in its lowest position or stowed position. Type 2 is the equipment can be driven elevated, but it's controlled from the chassis. So it's going to obviously require, 2 people to operate that. Type 3 is the equipment can be driven elevated and controlled from the work platform. So this is going to put the huge majority of the equipment and the training that we do in what type? Type 3, right? So that's going to be pretty common. That's one of the things that's going to be necessary on the training cards is the type of equipment that we're trained on. It's also going to be required that we have the group on there. Now we can list like scissors and boom, and we know what type and what group those are in. And as long as they're in that type and group, then you're fine if on-site training has been done. So if a MEWP moves vertically, but within the tipping lines, such as a scissors lift, is classified as a group A. If the MEWP can move beyond the tipping lines, such as the outriggers or wheels, it is considered group B. A boom lift is an example of equipment in group B. So most of what we are going to deal with is what? Type 3 and group A or B. So scissors or boom. So group A, type 3 is a MEWP. An example is an electric scissors lift. Platform never extends the equipment beyond the tipping line, and it can travel from the platform, can be initiated and controlled from the platform. And group B, type 3 is a MEWP lift. The aerial platform extends beyond the wheels and the machine can be moved by the operator while on the elevated work platform. And even beyond those extensions are the wheels. So in summary, this update replaces ANSI standards A92.3, A92.5, A92.6, and A92.8. These standards went into effect on June 1st of 2020. And this final paragraph answers that question that Phil had earlier from the contractor. Although ANSI standards are voluntary, OSHA often adopts ANSI standards via incorporation by reference. When these standards are adopted or incorporated, they become part of the OSHA regulations, and therefore compliance is mandatory. Not following the ANSI standards could be considered a violation of OSHA's general duty clause, which requires employers to keep the workplace free from recognized hazards. So since ANSI is a recognized body that sets forth standards, even though they may not be incorporated into the OSHA standards, they are a recognized, they are a recognized entity that puts forth recommendations for safe operation on job sites. So if somebody gets hurt and it happens to be within these standards, but not in the OSHA per se provisions of recognized, then you could still fall within the general duty clause because those standards do exist and you failed to protect your employees from those hazards that are known. One of the things with the contractor, and I get it to a degree, it seems kind of like if you're going down a local highway and they've got the speed signs covered up, and in a way it feels like, you mean I have to pay to see what speed I have to stay within? But here's the deal. If you don't pay to see what the speed limit is, then whenever the police officer pulls you over, he'll still hit you with ignorance of the law as no excuse, right? So in this particular case, because this is a recognized body and a recognized entity, then we're still going to be responsible for protecting the employees under the best recommendations that we can provide. So again, free from recognized hazards. Does that make sense to everyone? I mean, I get the point because it does, but at the same time, it's an independent entity, and that's how they derive their income. That's how they get their monies, is by coming up with these standards and then basically charging for access. Anybody got any questions on the rest of that? Whenever you get to this, some of the recommendations, you can go through it if you want to with the class. It's going to be the exact same questions whenever you take the exam. This is all instructors, so we're gonna go ahead and go through them. And even if you do complete the exam, so that you're familiar with them, but it's recommended that they pass with at least a written test of at least 70%, one retake. After the final attempt and successful completion of the exam is accomplished, it's recommended that the instructor go over the questions answered wrong with each student, allowing them to correct the answer and having them place their initials beside the same. So it's grading to 100% is what it is. I mean, we've all done it at some levels. If you think about it, do we really, what if somebody gets hurt on the 30% that they got wrong, even though they passed the course? So at least by them knowing what the correct answer is and them signing off by it, even though they got the passing grade and they got that right, at least we could feel a little better secure that they're going to operate it safely out there. So if we look at these, I'm going to go ahead and let Phil run you through these. Actually, Phil, if you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Obviously, this is all just informational. This is what the test is going to look like, as Kevin said. There's really no way to answer back. So we'll just go through each question. We'll give you the answer, and you'll know if you were right or wrong. All right, so let's take a look at the first one. Blank is the newly recognized name for what was previously known as self-propelled elevated working platform. ANSI and SIA A92.6-2006. Is it A, SOUP, B, MEWP,
I didn't get lunch.
C, mobile scaffold, or D, hyperlift? You guys have probably heard MEWP a few times.
Probably. Whoop. I'm sorry, that one did not advance. Well, I bet we know what the answer is to the next one.
Yes, they do. Rescue plans are required to
It's
be.
probably my fault.
It's okay. It's okay. Written. B, in place before the MEWP is used. C, known by all affected employees. D, written to limit rescue time to minimize the risk of exposure, of suspension, trauma, and the answer is E, all of the above. All right, number 3. Though the occupant is not in control of the movements of a MEWP, they must still be trained in the safe use of the MEWP. True. Number 4. Which of the following is not part of a site risk assessment? A, risk involved in the task must be identified. B, procedures and measures must be identified to eliminate known risk. C, identify measures and procedures must be implemented to eliminate known risks. Or D, performing annual maintenance. Yes, D, not part of the inspection. Number 5, the supervisor and blank are responsible for the safety of the persons not involved in the operating of the MEWP. The rental company, A, user, B, safety officer, C, or D, journey person. There you go, users. Number 6 is true. That's okay.
It's true.
The rescue
Absolutely.
plan must take into consideration a breakdown, platform entanglement, or fall from the platform. True.
And, sorry.
That's okay. Number 7. Operator training must include the proper selection of the correct MEWP for the work to be performed. And the answer is true. All right, number 8. Operator training must now also include A, proper selection of the correct MEWP for the work to be performed. B, how to perform a workplace risk assessment, including the rescue plan. C, proper training of the occupants. Or D, all of the above.
All the above.
All of the above. I didn't even see it spin.
Yep, I was a little early on it.
Number 9. When a dealer rents a MEWP to a user, the user absorbs all responsibilities to ensure that the equipment meets all of the requirements listed in the standards. It's true. Number 10, occupant training does not include A, the requirements to use fall protection and the location of the fall protection anchors. B, helping the occupant write the rescue plan. C, factors including how their actions could affect stability. Or D, manufacturer's warnings and instructions. Answer is B. All right, number 11, at least one of the occupants must be provided with the knowledge to operate the controls in a windy condition, B, demonstration, C, emergency, or D, none of the above. That's right, in an emergency. Number 12, an inspection that is required at least 3 months or 150 hours, whichever comes first, is called a blank inspection. Is that A, frequent, B, annual, C, job site, or D, nuisance? Frequent. Good. Number 13, the 2018 changes to the ANSI lift standards for use and training on MEWPs only affects a large contractor. False. Number 14, supervisors must be trained in these additional areas. Pick 2. A, proper selection of the correct MEWP for the work to be performed. B, the ability to perform a workplace risk assessment, including rescue planning. C, where to locate the break area. D, the hands-on portion of the lift training. There you go. All right, number 15, an annual inspection must be performed no longer than blank months after the previous annual inspection. 13, Number 16, MOOPs used on the rough terrain will be required to have foam-filled or solid tires. True. Number 17, all new MOOPs must have a gated entrance to the work platform. Blank are no longer permitted. A, the tie lines, B, spindles, C, chains, or D, none of the above. All right, so if you have none of the above, students, they're going to miss one at least. Number 18, supervisors and users must have the ability to perform a workplace blank and blank, including rescue planning. A, frequent inspections, B, annual inspections, or C, risk assessments. C, risk assessments. All right, number 19. MOOPs are further classified into blank number of types. A, 3, B, 2, C, 4, or D, 5. A, 3. Number 20, and I believe last one. MOOPs are classified into blank groups. A, 3, yep, B, 2. All right. Oh, I thought there was only 20. Number 21. An example of a MOOP that moves vertically but not within the tipping lines is a blank lift. A, scissor. B, cherry picker, or C, yeah, I'll just move on to 22. An example of MOOP that can move beyond the tipping lines or outriggers or wheels is a blank lift. A, boom, B, scissor, or C, unstable. Correct, boom. Number 23, the minimum height for equipment platform railing will increase from blank to blank inches. A, 34 to 38, B, 46 to 48, C, 39.5 to 43.5, or D, 34.5 to 38.5. C. All right, number 24. Some MOOP models will have reduced lift and load speeds. True or false? True. Number 25. This training consists of everything in the new ANSI A-92 standards, and no further training is needed. False. All right, so I hope all of you did really well. I know all of our trainers, we sat down and we took it first, and then we went over the PowerPoints, and then we started presenting it to our students. If your students are like ours, they're gonna call you if you don't know those answers. So, hope you did well.
There is, thanks, Phil.
Welcome, sir.
Does anybody have any questions for Phil or myself? You know, on the risk site, or the site risk assessment rather, that we had for a handout 1, we've also included one that's handout 2. And this is, sometimes it helps to get I like what Phil is doing with the apprentices. I think that's great. If somebody is trying to kind of get a visual on how you might want to tie this together on a work site and make it work, this would be an example. And as you see right up here, right off the bat, although this assessment covers many of the areas of concern for a job site that utilizes MOOPs, it is only a guide. If there are additional areas of concern, they should also be considered and planned for. So here you've got the date, you know, you got the manufacturer, the model, the type, the group, job site name, the name of the risk assessor, the person doing it, today's date, and you've got a pretty simple form that they could ask themselves and then answer these questions, and they're gonna be pretty far or pretty well along on trying to get a risk assessment done, a site assessment that can enable them to work safely on a job site, just as one of the tools. So that should also be available for you guys. Naturally, I mean, if you've got a supervisor that's separate, since they're supposed to be in conjunction, it's going to be a good idea to get the supervisor and the user's signature on that, irregardless of whether the user puts it together or the supervisor does. hopefully the user is going to be part of that analysis, just like Phil had mentioned. So outside of that, we've covered everything. We had factored up to an hour and a half on this, and we're within that. Does anybody, I mean, you guys are great to be participating in this group. Appreciate the heck out of it. Has anybody got any suggestions or any other ideas maybe of what might benefit the training that we have for, you know, future classes? Anybody got any thoughts on anything?
Yeah, I got something. One thing that's not really in our PowerPoints with the Overton classes, I always try to teach our guys, and it was always a best practice of mine. I just kind of learned from the old timers that taught me was if you've got an occupant in the lift with you, to always announce what you're doing before you do it, whether you're going up, down, moving forward, moving back, so that you don't move the lift when a guy's still trying to perform work. And
absolutely.
Great suggestion.
No, excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it. Anybody else got anything in particular? I mean, sometimes even a shift of weight, it's just like being on top of a scaffold and somebody thinks they're going to help you out and give you a little scoop when you're not expecting it. Even whenever you did that on job sites, that would still throw you for a major loop. So
there
it's
are
great.
also maybe somebody below you that you can't see. So if you're coming down and you're yelling coming down, then they'll know to get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Thanks.
Kevin?
Anybody else?
Kevin,
Yeah.
Tim in Alaska, is IFTI going to come up with support materials for this for classes? Or is it just up to us to create our own?
You mean support materials as in like manuals, or do you mean?
Yes, is forthcoming MEWP materials coming out, or are we just riding with what we have established through Overton?
Well, and I'll be 100% honest with you on this, Tim. The thought for this in particular, and I can't speak for the international, obviously, but this was a method and a mechanism to get our members trained pretty quickly that had already been trained. So it's just a supplement. There is going to be an effort put forth to have a complete training that incorporates this. So this is great for, for a tag on, and we'll also have some examples of cards that might be issued at the local level, so that you can give your members something that works, and you can alter those to meet the needs of your area too. But it's a good blueprint to go off of. Phil was very helpful on that too, and I really appreciate it. We all work together, brother. We'll share anything we got, and I know that that's always been the case with everybody I've worked with, and it's why it's just an extra joy to work with everybody, all the trainers.
So
awesome.
Just a quick question, kind of build on what Tim said. I'm sorry, Nick. Are we going to send out the PowerPoint and the information that we covered to these trainers so that they're able to use it? We are doing that, right?
The PowerPoint, everything that you saw today will be available. I don't know, as far as there hasn't been a manual that's been assembled.
Right.
But to this point, it doesn't mean that there won't be. It doesn't, I'm not sure.
So this is, this is Nicole from the FTI.
Hi, Nicole.
Couple of things here. So everything from today's presentation is in the LMS under the course materials. If you check the chat, I put the little link in there that you'll be able to download the PowerPoint and all of that. Sometimes sending out large PowerPoints, it goes through crazy security things and you guys never end up getting it. So if you can, log on to the LMS, download your PowerPoint. Awesome. To kind of address Tim's question regarding the Overton materials. There was, from my understanding, and again, I'm not here to debate or put this thing one way or another, but because whatever that lawsuit was regarding the ANSI standard updates, Overton and the FTI just 2 weeks ago they manufactured the new standard, so the MEW training, like literally for your training binder. we'll take out the old MEWP section, if there is one, right? You will take that out and you will get a new one put in there. So we have ordered training binder supplemental material because nothing else changes except for this particular thing. Again, my understanding. You will also, councils will also get workbooks as well as the new thumb drive with the new materials on it as well. Now, district councils get that, Tim, and with you being in Alaska, if you have to reach out to DC5 and if you have any concerns doing that, work with Ken Seal and he can bubble it up to us at the FTI. And we'll make sure that you, if we have to drop ship you directly in Alaska, that training material, we can certainly do that. So you guys want to look for those shipments. I feel like it would be this week, but with all of the weather and everything kind of going on, you might start to see those things next week. And everybody gets updated training materials. And like I said, the student workbooks as well. So that kind of came through, you know, our board of trustees trying to make sure that we get the updated training to you guys. But that's what I have so far regarding that. But everything from today is in the LMS.
And Nicole, correct me. So they can either go the course of Overton or they can choose to deliver this content also.
Absolutely. I mean, they both support each other. You know, one's not deviating from the other. The material is the material. Kevin and Phil have just done like a great job within their own right. We kind of heard about it and wanted to celebrate and show kind of what they did at their end so that they could kind of bring that training to y'all quickly. Because like you said, this changed in June and here we are, it's August. So, but all good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick,
Thanks, Tim.
Sorry. I believe I did interrupt you. You had a question.
Nope, I'm sorry, Nicole put it up. I was just saying that the information is up on the LMS.
Awesome.
That's all. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh, thank you.
No. If nobody else has any further questions or anything, then I guess we'll go ahead and end the course. All's good. Thanks it was great to see everybody. If you got any questions or anything, you want to shoot an email, feel free to do that too. If you've got any questions at all, how to contact us, then let me see here.
And we're going to be doing this again August the 20th. So if you know of anybody who needs to take it or hasn't formally signed up with Nicole, I would say do that.
And I just threw my phone number on the chat line real quick too. If you want to write that down before the class ends, if you need anything or just want to see how the weather's doing in St. Louis, that's fine too. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I appreciate it. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks, Manisha. Thanks everybody. It's great to see everybody.
Thank you much, Phil and Kevin.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Good job, Kevin. Good job, Phil.
Thanks, Tim.
Jimmy, holler at me.
Thank you, Phil. Good job, brother.
I'll do it, Tim.
See you, Jim.
See y'all. Thanks. Stay safe.
Bye, Phil.